Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shamans Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, and we are really excited that you're here today. We have a very important topic today. I'm going to let Sandra tell you about it, and we'll jump right on in.
Yeah, so, Renee and I have been on the planet for a while, and so we've been able to watch, behaviors in ourselves and other humans. And I think that most of you listening to this show are really going to relate to the issue that we're bringing up. In times of big change, like we're in now, but we've seen it throughout our lives. I know that you've all seen this throughout your life. When big changes come up, there are people who learn. It's a practice for most of us, it's natural for a few. All of a sudden become very flexible and just start to flow with the changes and look at what changes you need to make in your life to be in accordance with those changes. And then there's people who say, no, I am not going to change. The universe cannot make me change. Whatever's going on in the world, I want my life to stay the same. And so we dig. Trust me, I'm a control freak. We dig our feet into the earth and say, no, you can't force me to change. And so the waves keep coming and keep coming and keep coming until they just knock you over. And the people who are going with, well, change is happening. What changes do I need to make in my life so that I'm in balance with the flow? There's a real difference in the spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical health of people who are more flexible than are more rigid during times of change.
When I was young and I was a chef, I would be like, there's only one way to cook this. And cooks would walk out the door, left at, one after the next, because I would be so rigid about, everything. But I think what's really softened me a lot lately is there's nothing like moving to an island, where all of the power cords are still above the ground and the wind comes from all the directions and knocks out those power cords, and you could be without power for a couple of days. And so your best laid plans are put astray, are out to, out in the wind. And you could either get really testy about it, or you could really make it more of a fun adventure. And so I've tried to make it more of a fun adventure by getting a camp cook stove and, having more supplies, which we should all have more supplies, no matter where you're living or what's going on. And really being able to remember that I went to Girl Scout camp and I learned how to lash a toilet, that I learned how to lash an oven, that really I know how to take care of myself in these kind of extreme situations. And that we really have to be prepared to be able to go with the flow as well.
I'm moving in with you, Renee. I'm not prepared at all. The best that Woods and I have been able to come up with is buying a case of chicken soup. But no, you're absolutely right, and flexibility it's just so important. As a metaphor, I'll talk about my father. I'm going to leave myself out of this because I don't want the universe hearing anything. So my father's deceased, and so we don't have to worry about him. He had this thing. He fell constantly, but he fell in the slowest motion that you could imagine. And every one of his muscles relaxed when he fell. So in 97 and a half years, he was never hurt in his life. it's a real metaphor of when something's really coming. Do you stiffen up or do you relax? And I'm not a martial arts person, but I'm sure all the martial arts people are saying, well, of course, that's a known strategy. You don't get rigid. You relax and you let the energy move and move you. So it's when we get so rigid, we get taken down by the universe, because we're in a polishing stage right now. We're being polished. And when you stamp your feet and tell the universe you're not willing to do this work, what they do is they just throw more clay at you. Because they're trying to resculpt you. And so you just get more to deal with, because they're just going to increase the resculpting process.
What a great metaphor. When you were talking about that, I was thinking about diamonds and polished stones. They get put in those tumblers where they get tossed around until they're tumbled. And I think that's where we really are right now in our world order, is being tumbled around in order to polish ourselves. What a great metaphor, Sandra. I like that. And
yeah.
Good. Yeah, what else is in there? such a wealth of inspiration. I know that everything really is an illusion of control anyway. That they say that the source of addiction is that when we can't control one thing, we delusionally turn out to something we think we can control, whether it's like, oh, I'm going to just take that drink. Well, and then that one drink leads to, 100, but that it's this idea of that, like, well, I'm not getting my way here, so I'm going to do this. And really it's all an illusion anyway, because you're really kind of powerless over most of things, except for how you show up in your life, how you respond.
Yeah, that's the big point, Renee, is definitely how you respond. Yeah, back in my life, I love to fly on airplanes. And the worse the turbulence was, the deeper I fell asleep. And I love flying through thunderstorms. I just felt like I was being held by earth. And this was way before I had any spiritual practice. And then in the late 1980s, I was in a plane that got caught in a wind shear. And if those of you who know about flying, a plane that gets caught in a wind shear does crash. But there was a miracle. And apparently this plane was not supposed to go down. So we had a terrible landing, people screaming, things falling all over the place, suitcases everywhere. And I didn't realize that I was traumatized by this experience until 10 days later, because I always loved to fly. And the plane takes off and we're in the air and there's a little bump and I start screaming. And so I go home and I journey and I ask my guardian spirit what's happening, because I lost my love of flying and I became a white knuckler. To this day, I am a white knuckler. Talk about rigidity and turbulence. And my guardian spirit said to me, you have so many control issues. We had to figure out some way to make you deal with them. And so this has been an ongoing journey for me. How do you relax every muscle and become flexible in the turbulence, like people who love to fly through the winds and the clouds? Or are you a white knuckler and saying, no, I will not go through the turbulence and I will not go through this lifetime unless it's smooth? It's kind of interesting, because my story is basically what a lot of us are doing right now.
I do that sometimes in a car when somebody else is driving. I like to drive. Talk about control. Yeah, that's a hard one. And like, you close your eyes, you count to 10, you get back in your body, and that idea that we have, really, the one thing that I always turn back to is when I was in a plane in Chicago that lost its power. I still made it about me, though. I was like, oh, I just saw my book in the Chicago airport. I didn't get this far to write a book to die today. And the plane landed fine. And it was like, in that moment, it was like, I just thought, no, the winds have this. And I really do feel like a lot that the winds have this, and that my work is to share this magical, the winds have this, because truly the winds have been here for 4 billion years, and they haven't needed us to do anything except for make a big fat mess out of things most of the time. But that they continue on, the earth continues on, everything continues on, whether we think we can build up our little blocks or not. The trees grow, and the seasons change. And I had a sponsor once who said to me, Renee, always ask, is this going to make a difference in my life in 10 years? Like that was the yardstick. If it was going to make a difference in 10 years, I could stress about it. But if it wasn't going to make a difference in 10 years, that I had to, use my tools to let it go.
Yeah, that's a really wonderful way of looking at things, because I know that for me, and I think that this is true for a lot of people. I'm getting too worn down to fight the universe right now. So I am starting to go with the flow, and like all of us, I'm dealing with a lot of losses. But what I'm finding is, if I just let go of the losses instead of going, ooh, I didn't want to let go of this one, a greater opportunity is being presented to me. So I'm getting immediate feedback. Rigidity, the spirits are pushing me down and giving me harder lessons. Saying I'm willing to let it go, the spirits are bringing me greater opportunities. And it really is kind of the way life is. There are times where we have to stamp our feet on the ground and say enough, or this is my boundary, or we have to draw a line in the sand with people and with our work and around self-care. But around these big earth-changing issues and political issues, this is a time for us to look at how do we enter the flow and where the new flow is going to, and how do I stay sane and actually thrive instead of just survive by going into the flow, versus stamping my feet and saying, I've drawn a line in the sand to the universe, and the universe really doesn't care.
Well, there is a wind trick where if you're just getting a lot of wind and too much wind, and I think I've shared this before, where you actually take your sword and cut it and say, Taba, which means, all right, enough wind, stop. So if it's really like, if you're like, because, they say, or whoever it is, they say that, God's not going to give you any more than you can handle in a given day. But sometimes it feels like we're right at that brink. So, Taba, enough with that wind.
Yeah, you've never shared that before.
No, I haven't? Oh, yeah. It's like, stop that wind.
Yeah. So, it's, as you know, there aren't clear-cut ways to deal with every single situation. You can't always use the same tools in every situation, especially right now. things are changing so rapidly. Where even shamans in traditional villages, they're changing their ceremonies, they're changing their healing ways to deal with the changes that are coming through right now. And so there's a balance that we all have to find, and it's part of using our intuition. It's part of being willing to stand in the wind and see how the wind is blowing us, of when is it time to stand our ground, and when is it time for us to go with the flow of what life is bringing to us.
Those are great questions. And it would be really great this week if you all weighed in the Facebook page and on the YouTube channel and tell us, what tools and tricks do you use to go with the flow when you're really feeling most pushed, or most backed up against the wall, that you can shift, you can pivot. And, I was thinking about it because one of the tools that I use when I teach Windwork Basics is about understanding which wind is coming at you at any given moment. So like if you're having an emotional south wind blowing at you when you're in the grocery store, you're pushing your cart a little too hard, trying to get yourself through the checkout line faster than fast. But if you just stop, take a breath and say, maybe I could invite in the more spiritual north wind to come in here and help me shift. And what it does is it doesn't change the line at the grocery store, but it changes your perception of it. So instead of pushing through, I got to get out of here, I've been here too long, the line's too long, it's like, oh, look I just met somebody new, or I just ran into a neighbor. So it's all where we're looking at, or which wind is coming at us in any given moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And every day changes. And all of us who, have been going through different challenges realize that we have good days and we have bad days, and that everything is always changing. And just not to attach too much to where you are on that day, because it is going to change on another day. And so I just want to say from my heart that I really feel my heart opening up right at this moment to everybody who's listening, because I really do understand what so many of us are going through. And it is so difficult to be flexible, as flexible as we're being asked to be right now. And so I just want to let you know that myself and Renee and our circle, we do an amazing amount of work to hold each other in love, so that we feel like we have support. A lot of people feel very isolated and no support, but you do have support. You do have support from us, and you do have support from our circle. And we've tried to make the Facebook page a place where people can share what's going on, and where can ask questions and can share tools. As Renee keeps encouraging every week, put on a Facebook page, how are you feeling about this topic, and what are the tools that you're using? But the reality, as everybody knows, is Facebook has become a marketing tool, and we're trying to keep a clear field of energy on the Shamans Cave so people can share from our hearts, and we can respond to you from our hearts. And too many ads, we can't do that. It's just not possible. So we don't let ads on our Facebook page. This Facebook page is for all of us to support each other in what's happening to us, not what we're doing in the world, but what's happening to us, and the tools that we can share to help other people go through. So if you're trying to market a workshop, instead of marketing your workshop, why don't you share some of the tools that you're teaching so that our page stays a place of a circle of support?
Absolutely. And I'll even be so bold that sometimes I'll say that. So what do you do? How do you feel? I have right now in my Windwork Basic class there's a little emoji in Facebook about how am I feeling. This week I did a 7-day challenge about how are you feeling? Mm-hmm. Like what are you feeling? And I mean, it's really good in this kind of crazy upside down time to look and say, this is how I feel. Oh, I'm pretty good today. Because a lot of that other stuff, which we talked about in our last show, isn't even yours. So on that, I think enough is said, and we look forward to being here with you through these times, trying to be a little more flexible, with our off the mat yoga style.
Yeah, we don't like coloring within the lines, and part of the magic about learning about about the power and the magic of flexibility is learning how to color outside of the lines. And so we love the uniqueness that you bring to our community, and we love you and we hold you in love, and blessings to all of you. And thank you for joining our circle.
Thank you.